Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all. Best action movie.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcast should have a theme song. Podcast should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
Wow.
Yeah. Hearing you say that in best action movie mode is pretty amazing.
It's finally appropriate. It took, 8 million episodes to finally have that voice be appropriate to something that we were talking about?
It doesn't work with crunchy peanut butter or smooth.
Yeah. I love Care Bears. It doesn't work. It may be true, but it doesn't work.
Well, we're here today to talk about action movies, and what better person to have on the show to talk about action than comic book legend Chip Zdarsky. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. I'm known as a man of inaction, so we'll see how this plays out.
Well, you're a man who represents action well.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, 3 people sitting in chairs talking about action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Welcome to podcasting, everybody. Just imagine I'm going to move my body as little as possible during this record. That's my promise to everybody listening. I don't care how tired my arms get.
I'm only going to reach for popcorn throughout, like you often do with an action movie.
Yeah.
Just so that I can get that sound of crunching into a microphone onto the show, as I always enjoy having.
I'm going to be firing my guns into the air like I do when I watch action movies in the theaters I'm allowed in.
That list is getting shorter.
Yeah.
What's your favorite action movie trope? Let's just start off the bat. Let's just get some fun action movie moments out there.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of, I was told PG-13, but I'm too old for this S.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Sure.
I like that. I like the reluctant, violent hero being pulled back in one last time. Like, it's not an action movie, but like, I tend to write a lot of my comics as if they're a history of violence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I just love that movie so much. Like, Viggo Mortensen just be like, oh, I don't know who you're talking about. And then just breaking arms.
Is there a perfect moment? Is the perfect moment for that to happen when the character just reveals, yes, I am in fact this person? Or is it something happens and they have to just do a fierce ass whooping in front of somebody that didn't know the story?
Yeah, the ass whooping. Because in History of Violence, it's like a robbery, I think, in the diner that he works at.
Mm-hmm.
And he just leaps into action and like takes the person out quite dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other patrons in the diner are like, what the hell just happened? And he's like, better put some more coffee on. Like, your cover's been blown.
There are kind of like 2 different schools of action hero. One is that person who has a certain set of skills, like you're Taken or even Born Identity, where they're sort of activated into action. And then there are the people who become action heroes because of circumstance. And the movie that popped into my mind immediately is Meryl Streep in The River Wild, which is kind of an unsung action movie.
Interesting.
Why are you laughing? No, it is.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize we'd be talking about the films of Meryl Streep on this.
Yeah.
That was where we were going to start even.
Yeah. Jeez.
It's
coming out of the gate strong with The River Wild.
I've never seen it. You have to tell me what it's about.
She's a mother. She's with her husband, played by David Strathairn, and her children. And they are, I think, kidnapped by, I can't remember who the bad guy. I want to say it's John Lithgow because he was the bad guy in every early.
I feel like John C. Reilly was the bad guy's sidekick in this.
Probably was involved.
I might be mixing up movies, but it's not Lithgow dressed as a dingo, is it?
No. You're thinking of All Dogs Go to Heaven too.
Oh, good.
All right, there you go.
That's that one.
Okay. All right.
No, she's like a river guide and she becomes a hero to save her family, but she's not like retired special forces or like a John Wick where she gets pulled back into a world. She's kind of thrust into circumstances. And I think one of the movies, which I'll hold off on talking about now, you either put yourself in the circumstances or the circumstances are thrust upon you.
Yeah.
And you may or may not be ready to meet the challenge. And I think those are kind of 2 big buckets.
It seems like that second bucket is the more memorable characters all kind of fall into that.
Right person.
I mean, even
place,
Indiana Jones is that to some extent. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. He just wants to put things in a museum. That's all he wants to do.
He's really just a curator.
That's all.
He's not supervising any digs anywhere. I've never seen him dig except at the beginning when they're digging into the Well of Souls. Mm-hmm. And even that's just breaking rock. He's not interested in shoveling. He's not interested in laying string different places and cataloging items.
No, the iconic shot is him walking as the sun is setting and a bunch of other people are digging.
Sure.
Well, to be fair, I mean, this is no slight against teachers, but he's probably not very good at it because his full-time job is a teacher now.
Yeah.
Saying those that can't do teach.
I'm not
in his case,
that.
in
Hal said it. Hal said it.
Wow. I'm
just saying in Indiana Jones case.
Yeah. I said it, but that's Mark's. He's got it on his t-shirt right now. It's just
I have that on my t-shirt, and I don't know if the listeners can't see this, but I have "I love you" written across my eyelids when I blink them.
Sure.
Just for you two to see. I don't want to tell you which of you two I'm talking to.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a great action movie? I think we should start with that. Mm-hmm. We should craft what we think the iconic, perfect action movie is and figure out what fits that description.
I think the acceleration, kind of the build up throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite ones are ones that kind of start slow and then something happens and something else gets bigger and bigger and bigger and the character gets in deeper and deeper. When I was trying to think about what the best one was, Fury Road comes to mind, but it's so relentless. It feels like its own thing completely. Right.
Right.
And also post-apocalyptic, as soon as you enter that kind of realm where you have a whole other category attached to it, then Star Wars becomes an action movie.
Right.
Those movies are action movies, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had that thought as well because Mad Max Fury Road in particular came to mind. And it does go 0 to 15 and then stays there the whole time, which is great. Yeah. I mean, it's basically an hour and a half, 2 hour long chase sequence. And I went to see that movie and it was ending around 10 and I was so charged up by it that I looked for tickets to another movie to go see because I was like, I'll never sleep again. I crashed very quickly and didn't do it. But
the movie was like candy for you. Well, I guess I'm never going.
That's it.
But does this mean, do we want to take every film based on a comic book and disqualify that?
That's the tricky part. I'm a huge fan of River Guide movies.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Oh, have you seen The River Wild? Because you would love that.
That's what I haven't seen, but
that's the only one.
Do we discount all movies that feature river guides?
You've only seen The Great Race, Charlie Brown's The Great Race.
Yes, exactly.
So race for your life. That's what it is.
It becomes a little tricky because action's just it's the heart of so many movies across so many genres.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to find something that's principally an action movie, I'd say the Bourne movies are obviously action movies, even though they're, kind of intrigue as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Bond movies are kind of their own thing, I think.
It's a spy thriller, maybe more of a thriller than an action. They've become more action. I mean, they've always had some element of action or great chase in them, but it's been as much about the intrigue as it is about the action sequences. That changed a little bit more with Daniel Craig and even Pierce Brosnan once we got into the 90s because action movies were so popular. All the Bond movies became action movies with a little bit of spy stuff in them.
Yeah, like Casino Royale, he's just a brute thug of a man.
But he can play cards.
But he can also play cards.
Yeah, if the character can play cards, we have to eliminate that movie immediately.
Well, you do that sitting down, and we know that all good action movies, like this podcast, happen entirely seated. Let me ask you guys a question because we mentioned Bond movies, and I guess I'm stuck on the word action. Is it possible that our best action movie, the action is going to be one specific thing, or do you think it's going to be a bunch of things? Like in a Bond movie, you talk about the espionage and the intrigue. It's step A leads to step B, which means now I have to do step C, which means the big finale thing is step D and we're all going to get involved. Or is it, I have one goal from the beginning of this action process, whether it's Mad Max Fury Road, get this person from point A to point B. Do you like the action to be a single action? Or I love the getting in over their head because there's so many movies where Die Hard is just a guy progressively getting more and more in over his head.
Yeah, it's the snowballing that I think makes for a more interesting movie.
But it is one specific task. It's get my wife out of this building or thwart this attack. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, well then what movies don't have that ultimately?
I guess it was the Bond. Well, no, I guess then I will separate it there. Whether it's just one single action, a Bond movie to me feels like we know there's going to be a lot of nice locations. We know there's going to be gunfights and car chases and sexy people, but we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. But if you go into Die Hard and there's a building, my wife's in the building, and terrorists have the building.
Yeah, but there are many tasks along the way, similar to a Bond movie. Like a Bond movie is still like, oh, this bad guy has this thing that's going to blow up the world. So
right, that's true.
There's still a series of mini tasks, like you're going through a video game, I suppose, to get to that ultimate goal. And Die Hard is exactly that too. He's got to get contact to the outside world. That's like one of his tasks.
Right.
Yeah. You know, he's got to get a machine gun, ho, ho, ho. He's, you know, there's various things that he's got to do. So I guess it's
the objective for each individual scene and the super objective for the whole action movie.
And that's good storytelling in general.
Yeah.
That's true. And everything should be, this happens, and because of that, the next thing has. So there's a logical chain that you can follow. Like Lethal Weapon, which is another sort of, maybe not Mount Rushmore, but up there action movie, starts with, find out what happened to my daughter. You and I were war buddies. At the same time, you kind of have twin stories that intersect, and then it just grows bigger and bigger and bigger because all these other people involved, and Gary Busey's setting his arm on fire, and you know, it's a whole thing. Next thing you know, you're hanging from a chain getting electrocuted by the guy who ate candy bars in Die Hard.
Yeah.
Is that Huey Lewis?
Here's one that I think is an action movie, but based on what you're saying, Chip, maybe it doesn't qualify. And that's Aliens. Alien is a horror movie. Aliens is, we're going to get into a gunfight with these things, and they're everywhere. Is that an action movie, even though it takes place in the future on another planet? I mean, there's obviously a ton of sci-fi involved.
Yeah. I don't know. All right. Bye.
All right. Thanks for coming. Mark, I told you we have to screen these people.
Damn it. He just called in.
Ken's letting the River Wild,
anyone,
Mark.
Look, if
he
the
hasn't
thing is
seen the River Wild.
Hal, if the thing is blinking, we take the call. We said that at the beginning.
I'm leaving.
Oh, great. Now it's
that call.
Is it, please be someone. Please be Chip.
Come on, be honest with everyone. I paid $40 to be on this.
You're right. Thank you for being a patron.
This is an elaborate cameo.
Hi, I hear you like podcasts, so why don't you join us? And happy birthday.
Oh my God.
Okay, not to outsource our problems, but I think the key is, would it show up on a list of action movies? If IGN or AV Club was like, here's the top 100 action movies of all time. Or actually narrow it down, because if it's top 100, they might be like, ooh, this isn't really an action movie, but
Black Swan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, here's your top 10. Here's your top 10 action movies. Would Aliens be on it, or Star Wars? No.
I've seen Aliens in the top 10 of lists before.
Of lists
of top 10, like Empire's top 100, their top 10. Aliens is like in the top 5
of action movies.
Yeah, because if you think about it, a lot of the basic concepts of an action film are there. It just happens it's really more the setting.
Yeah.
And what the creature is. Like Predator is an action film, but it has sci-fi elements. And maybe it's more believable or it better fits because all the action takes place on Earth in the jungle.
Yeah. Yeah, with very realistic humans.
Oh my God. It's cinema verite.
Human beings from our planet of Earth.
It almost looked like news footage.
But like another movie that's consistently in the top 10, it is definitely in the sci-fi genre, is Terminator 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, that's an action movie, but
I guess does it make it an action movie if it eventually winds up on the mean streets of blank? You know what I mean?
Rigel 9.
If I think of Terminator 2 being a sci-fi movie, the image that pops into my head is sparks and metal and Terminator. If you say Terminator 2 action movie, I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger on a motorcycle doing that crazy gun flip move that he did,
in the LA
right?
River.
I pick different scenes in my brain based on whether I think it's an action movie or a sci-fi movie. And I guess that leads me to another question is I'm just trying to get a baseline of what we're talking about for the best action movie. Let's talk about the settings, like the action movies that we're thinking of.
You mean like set pieces, like huge action sequences, or where is it set, like in a city or in the future?
I mean, we can talk about both of those. You know what? Let's start with tentpole pieces, and then we'll talk about other things. I think any good action movie is going to have tentpole scenes. Yes.
I think there has to be a memorable, one memorable sequence. Yeah.
The funny thing is, like John Wick, I couldn't tell you what that is because it's all just firing guns at everyone all the time.
Right.
And I loved it, but I can't think of one thing in there that I'm like, oh, that's what it was all leading to, this big piece.
That's a good point. I think the sequences that stick out of my head are later in the movie, later in the series, like the
side scroll
where he's fighting using the horses as weapons, and then he's building guns. That's like all part of the same sequence in the same building, but they built it's kind of similar to Fury Road in that way, where once he starts killing people, it doesn't stop. No. And it just gets more creative. Like those movies do such a good job of somehow heightening. Like you think it can't get any more ridiculous. And then you have like Halle Berry calling dogs from like 300 miles away to attack on her behalf.
All right. So first of all, we're in agreement that every movie is an action movie.
Yes.
That's right. Sure.
And they don't necessarily need set pieces.
Yep.
At least we're narrowing it down finally.
Meryl Streep should be in it.
I wish I was here for the creamy versus chunky peanut butter conversation. Frankly. That would have been much easier.
Oh yeah. Well, look, we picked it. This is a big topic this week.
Yeah. I remember you guys were like, oh, well, what of these topics would you be interested in? And I kind of threw this one in. I'm like, oh, that might be fun. But, really, Avengers versus X-Men would have been much easier.
You want to talk about, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you gentlemen right now. When I came onto this call, I had The Office as my background on Zoom. I thought I was being very clever. I have notes in front of me because until the moment we started recording, thought that The Office and Parks and Recreation were the topic we were discussing today, which is why I have Office and Parks and different details on a piece of paper. So I am jumping right into this as if I walked up to the table with a beer in my hand and went, what are you guys talking about?
First of all, let me just say, Mark, you are a pro because you just rolled with it perfectly. And I did not. There was no fumbling, no comments about Jim and Pam to start with.
No, I thought as long as we're being honest, but this is a big topic. So we can do it, guys. We can do it. Shut up, Hal.
Is that why you're dressed like
yeah, I put Jim, the tie on. I was doing a bit.
Not like the keyboard player for the Talking Heads.
You know what? Here's what it is now. I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt and a tie. I am no longer from the television series The Office and or Parks and Rec. I am now from the action movie Falling Down. I am Michael Douglas walking into a McDonald's.
That's an action movie, not a drama.
Sure. There's guns in it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like that would make First Blood an action movie. Instead of a study of PTSD and the treatment of veterans.
Yeah, I mean, Falling Down, there's guns in it. There's a protagonist that I think we all agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Good call.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. There's a movie I want to talk about. And the reason I was asking this earlier, yes, it sounds simplistic, but I feel like there's so many great action movies that are very simple and their premise could be delivered in a couple of sentences, which allow me to sit back and just enjoy the action of the movie. For example, and I know this is not going to be at the top of any list, but just to know where I'm coming from in my action movie viewing, are any of you familiar with the movie Shoot 'em Up?
Yeah.
Yes. I haven't seen it, but
the premise of that movie is brilliant. It is Clive Owen is the man with no name in the leather jacket, right?
Yeah.
So Clive Owen is man with no name, hears a woman scream and a baby cry, goes in a warehouse, goes in to help. The mafia's in there, woman is killed, he grabs the baby, runs out the door. Boom. The whole movie is just Clive Owen with a baby in one arm and a gun with the other fending off the mob. And the whole thing ends with a gunfight in a gun factory in a movie called Shoot 'em Up. That to me is a perfect action movie because it literally is nothing but it's action distilled.
Yeah. I actually, I don't know if I blocked it out, but I did see that. I saw that in the theater. And I remember me and my friends leaving and we were just like, did we just watch a Looney Tunes movie?
Yeah.
It's like almost everything in it was just like something like the Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner would get up to.
Yeah. Right down to him eating a carrot the whole movie. Do you remember this?
Yeah. I think
he ate a carrot the whole time.
And dug holes.
At one point, he jams the carrot into the trigger and throws the gun. Like this movie is bonkers.
It feels like a movie that should star Jason Statham.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It should star Jason Statham and Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah. The bonkers aspect is something that we should talk about. Like, does an action movie have to be bonkers?
Yeah, that seems to be how it trended for a while. And still, I think we've come to accept ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Right.
In movies in a way that we didn't before. Like, there's no way a Jason Statham movie would have worked in the 80s. We would have laughed.
Oh man, some pretty terrible action movie tropes happened in the 80s though.
Sure. No, I'm not saying that's when they were good. I'm just saying
it was all believable in the 80s.
How we suspend our disbelief. I think like John Woo's movies kind of prepped us. The ones that he made here in America, like with Jean-Claude Van Damme, stuff like Hard Target, kind of prepped us a little more. Like this is a little step up. Sure, Jean-Claude Van Damme's going to stand on this motorcycle while firing a gun. You'll be fine with that.
Yeah, just watch this dove.
And then we get to like, if Jason Statham doesn't stick himself with this steroid, he's going to die because he's got a bomb in his heart. He's got to keep his heart going.
Though that first Statham movie with the
the Transporter?
Is it Transporter where he wakes up, there's the CD, he puts the CD in and the guy's like, hello, good morning. Your heart rate it's basically
Crank.
speed.
That's Crank.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Crank.
That to me is a perfect action movie.
Really?
I don't have to think about anything. All I want in an action movie is cool fights.
Okay. All right.
Interesting set pieces, like do something in the lobby of La Scala. Sure. I don't care what the little widget that you're chasing is.
Right.
Just have an interesting way to get to it.
So Mark doesn't like to think.
Sure.
Yeah. I like to think if I'm watching a thinking movie. This ain't a thinking movie. This is a doing movie.
He didn't think he was going to be talking about action movies when he got on.
No, I did not.
No.
I dressed in The Office costume thinking I was so clever.
I can't believe you cosplayed for an audio podcast.
Very impressive.
Look, it's because I care. Obviously not enough to look at the email that said the topic we were doing.
No, clearly. I'm Chip, by the way.
Chip, hi.
So
I knew it was Chip Day on the show. I was very excited about Chip Day.
In preparation for this, last night I rewatched one of the last movies I saw in the theater that actually kind of made me clap during the movie, which was Fast Five.
Okay.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Because I think that is a series of movies we should discuss.
We have to.
As one that started as a racing movie and became just the most outlandish, over-the-top action movie series of all time, I think. Like, when we talk about action movies, it's like, are we talking about action movies? Or are we talking about action movies? Like, the Fast and the Furious ones are action movies. Like, there's nothing going on in there that makes any sense. But I am absolutely over the moon watching Fast Five as they drag a safe through a city.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's the original movie is basically Point Break with cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second one, the first two I saw, I remember watching, and then I kind of dropped off. And then when I came back to see, anytime I go home to Philadelphia to visit, there's a good chance my father will be watching one of the Fast and Furious movies just while he's on the treadmill. And like, I will come downstairs and there he is. And there's like Charlize Theron with dreads driving an 18-wheeler up a waterfall.
Yeah.
Like it's the world's most expensive series.
Yeah.
He just keeps watching season 1 of that TV show, The Fast and the Furious, that cost hundreds of millions of dollars per episode.
And it seems like Fast 5 in particular is sort of like the apex. Like
I think it's the one that turned it around and made it into like full-on action superhero movie territory. Yeah, it's got some of the dumbest dialogue I've ever heard in my life. But my God, the action scenes, and there's no pretense of reality at all. Like there is a scene in it where the two main characters, I don't even know their names. Vin Diesel is one of them.
It's Vin and Diesel. Those are the two main characters.
Family.
They get captured and they get chained up, and the bad guy gives a speech, and the bad guy walks out, leaving the prerequisite bodyguards there. And their big plan is, Paul Walker, the other character, gets his legs around the guy's throat, as you always do. And Vin Diesel, he just goes like this. He just moves his hands and he breaks the chains, and then he beats the bad guys and they get away. Like immediately. Like, it's that kind of movie, and you're just along for the ride. Like, I remember laughing so much in the theater when I saw that. Because I'm just like, you can just picture them on set being like, okay, so how are you going to get out of this? I don't know, just break it.
Yeah.
I'll just break the chains, I guess.
I think that's not the expensive scene. That's the scene that they're not going to spend a lot of time working on. They're going to spend hours making sure the car flipping over looks cool.
Yeah.
They don't care how he gets out of the chains.
No, them being captured and hung up in this meat locker or whatever and then escaping is literally 3 minutes of the movie. That's it. They're back out. It's really incredible filmmaking, and I put that forth as being the best action series of all time.
Sure. There's a moment in The Expendables. It is the perfect, such a ridiculous trope that I remember laughing as I watched it and just thoroughly enjoying this scene. And it's just a dialogue scene.
Yeah.
It's the new kid on the team talking to the grizzled old vet Stallone who's working on his motorcycle.
Yeah.
And everything he says is a clue that he's going to die the next day. Everything is, well, I just got back with my girl. We're going to have a baby. You know, this is going to be my last time doing a job like this. I'm going straight after today. Literally every sentence that this guy says makes you go, oh my God, he is more and more dead tomorrow with each passing sentence.
Hey, I want you to know before we go, my bid was accepted on that Colonial out in the suburbs. I can't wait to move in. We close on Friday.
Which is a good thing, because on Saturday I got to go to the hospital and give a kidney to my brother. That part will be fine. Don't worry.
But it's a recently graduated kidney. That's right. My whole career's ahead of me.
Got to cash in this winning lotto ticket.
I got accepted to school. I'm going to be a phlebotomist.
It was the verbal equivalent of that scene in every Final Destination movie where the camera just goes around the room showing you things that might kill the person.
Yeah.
It was
Expendables is just the board of directors for Planet Hollywood deciding we should also make a movie. I know the restaurant didn't work out.
It's the Guy Fieri of movies.
Nobody wanted to eat sitting next to Brendan Fraser's outfit from Encino Man. Maybe we should just get back to movies.
Well, we're going to rebrand. It's going to be Planet Croatian Productions.
It's fine.
God.
We'll just dub all the other actors' voices.
Yeah.
They'll think it's Detroit.
Oh, Hal, you and I have given American accents to so many Croatian actors in American films.
That's true. We have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a living.
Good long run of that living.
Yeah. Never dries up.
No.
Is the best action movie going to be one that you just laugh at how ridiculous it is? Or is it
hard,
one
that
gets you charged up?
Yeah, I mean, they can be both, but yeah, because once they get kind of self-referential and so over the top, they're winking at you constantly.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I think at that point it's no longer the running to be best action movie, because the action movie has to kind of define the genre.
Yeah.
And when you're self-referential, you're no longer defining the genre. You're something else. You're commercially very successful, but I don't know if you're in the upper echelon.
So I briefly mentioned Taken, but I think it's worth discussing a little bit, just in that there are points where it takes what you would expect from a typical action movie and turns it on its ear. And if you haven't seen it, you've had long enough that they were going to spoil it. Even at the very end, when the guy's like, we can negotiate, he never gets through the sentence because Liam Neeson just shoots him.
Yeah.
He's a guy on a mission. It's brutal. The action is he's really efficient, which is not something you see in a lot of fights. Some sort of made popular stylistically by the Jason Bourne movies, where it wasn't about how pretty the maneuver is. It's how quickly he can take you out and how brutal sort of the camera angles become.
Yeah.
But I think movies like that can surprise you. And it's what you want too. You don't want to hear the bad guy's point of view or him try to negotiate. At that point, it just needs to be over. And it is.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good sort of storytelling choice as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah, that makes sense.
It fits all of those criteria that we talked about, the person getting thrust into a situation and, but is he ever in over his head? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't recall the action being anything spectacular in that movie. Like, you talk about how it's just, cutting to like him just doing the brutal quick thing to take him out. I mean, that's probably because Liam Neeson was like 60 when he did it.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't see it as being necessarily an action movie,
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you guys this. We've all now at some point mentioned these movies, but we haven't really put them into contention. What about the Bourne movies? The Bourne movies kind of fit, especially the first one. I think it ticks off a lot of the boxes of what we want. You both are making a face like, if I say Bourne is the best action movie of all time, it's dissatisfying.
It's hard. Like I remember my wife and I rewatched all of them. We were like staying at this like kind of weird beach house that had a DVD player. We're like, a DVD player? Wow, this is amazing. And like, it's like I think the only
go get the DVDs.
Yeah, the only movies they had were like Bourne collection. We're like, oh yeah, it's been a while. Let's watch them, and they vary in quality throughout. And we watched them. We're like, oh yeah, these are generally pretty good. But again, I can't really tell you anything in it that impressed me. Like in terms of like action pieces, like, every fight scene was like really well done.
Yeah.
But
there is that one amazing shot. It does have one of the great movie shots, I think.
What's that?
Through the window,
okay,
where the cameraman with the steady cam is actually following, I don't know if it was Matt Damon or if it was his stuntman, and he's chasing him and he's on a cable system or whatever.
Yeah.
And the stuntman jumps out the window of one building through the window of another. Yeah. The cameraman, his cables catch him as he makes the same jump.
Yeah.
That to me is mind blowing.
Cool. Yeah.
But I think I want big set pieces. You know what I mean? Not that this is a great example of it, but I want Superman knocking over buildings, having to hold them up and then, deliver power blows back.
Wait, sorry. You want Superman knocking over buildings and then holding it up.
Well, look, in that movie, he basically
he's making himself look like the hero.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Which is, isn't that Mission Impossible 3? He makes the virus and the antidote.
Right. Or is that 2?
I don't remember. It was one of them.
2 was the masks.
We did our Mission Impossible episode and I watched all of them in 2 days and my brain nearly exploded. They are great action movies. Absolutely. Those are action movies.
Yeah. I just rewatched, Fallout.
Fallout's fantastic.
It's very good.
Yeah. It's a really, really good movie. And again, they kind of end up being more action movies. I remember the first one being kind of more spy, like quietly breaking into a place, the suspended by the wires and all that. But
right.
But by the time you get to Fallout, it's like just that brutal fight scene in the bathroom.
Yeah. I mean, that first one's Brian De Palma, so it's going to be a bunch of paranoid. Like, who do I trust? What do I do? Like, it's that kind of a feeling too.
Look, those rubber masks were really good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was John Voight at the end. Turns out it was just Tom Cruise in a beautifully photorealistic rubber mask. Though that is one thing you mentioned before, whether believability is a thing. I think for me, the believability factor comes into play with how much suspension of disbelief I realize I'm even doing. You know what I mean? I think the best action movie is going to be something where everything feels completely believable. And then an hour later, you're like, wait, air pressure doesn't work that way. Yeah. You can't use a gun to aim a plane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're setting the tone of the world, which is why the John Wick movies work so well, because they've clearly created an entire universe that makes sense on that level and that level only.
Sure. With their rules and tokens and,
and the fact that every fourth person is an assassin.
Right.
You
don't know that.
It's true. I don't know it. You should go back to Die Hard, because the best part about that movie is the fact that like the main character is also the audience. Like he's in disbelief that he's pulling this off, that these things are happening. So he kind of like pulls you into that suspension of disbelief with him, which I think kind of makes him, in a lot of ways, kind of the ultimate action hero. I mean, that movie kind of redefined action movies.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, it was all Schwarzeneggers and Stallones and, the big muscle guys. And then Bruce Willis, like barefoot in a dirty shirt.
Yeah.
Desperately trying to get out of the situation. Yeah. Like it's all unbelievable what's happening, but it's just within the realm of believability for the audience to kind of stay along with it. I remember years ago, I worked at a newspaper and my job was information graphics. So when an event would happen, like I'd have to like draw maps and charts and figure out, like show people how these things took place. And I really wanted to do a fake one for Die Hard, as if it had actually happened.
Right.
And the newspaper had to cover it the next day. And I'm just
lots of dotted lines marking paths and things.
Yeah. I figured out a schematic of the building, and then, at point 4, this is what happened. And reports say that this John McClane character did this and then did that. Like, just to put it into perspective how ludicrous it all is. But while you're watching it doesn't feel that way, because it's just like, oh yeah, no, that's the next step for sure. That's what you've got to do.
Yeah. He doesn't have like the skill. He's just smart and resourceful. It's not like he's not like a trained super spy. Yeah. He gets lucky too. He's lucky that the fire, I mean, obviously it's a film, but it doesn't feel like I tied this fire hose off. It's definitely going to work. Yeah. So almost every scene he's up against some sort of ticking clock. That's either because he wasn't smart enough to think of anything else, or just he's way in over his head. He's got to spend time picking glass out of his feet. You don't see that in action movies now.
Yeah, and like the fire hose scene, like if they cast Schwarzenegger would tie it up and do it, and there would be no indication that it wouldn't work. Whereas Bruce Willis is just like, oh God, this better work. Yeah.
There's that making it up as you go along. Yeah. I mean, there's another movie I want to talk about while we're mentioning this.
Yeah.
Kind of as a parallel film to this, in that it's in one building. You could, in fact, do the same sort of schematic to this. Mm-hmm. There's a scene where someone gets glass in their feet. It is a hero who is thrust into having to think on his feet quickly. It is also, like Die Hard, a Christmas movie, is Home Alone. One of the greatest action movies of all time.
I think it doesn't have enough action in it.
The final third of that movie is the greatest action movie of all time.
Are you counting the scene where Kevin slides across the ice on his knees as like an action scene, that great chase sequence?
It's funny because you saying Home Alone is an action movie is very much like when people say Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I'm buying it on one level. Because sure,
because it says ho ho ho.
But
look, I don't think that Die Hard can be dismissed as our top contender right now, just based on this conversation. No. It seems like somebody's got to kick it off the mountain.
It also started so many other movies. Like, it really changed action movies.
Die Hard on a blank.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. And the idea of the kind of the fallible action hero. Yeah. And it's also just really good. And it's got the best bad guy in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's another thing with action movie is like, well, who's the bad guy? Who stands out there? And Hans Gruber is kind of...
I do love a good bad guy. Hans Gruber is pretty perfect.
Yeah, he's on like the Mount Rushmore of bad guys. I mean, Mount Rushmore is all bad guys, but...
That's true. It's all villains.
But you know what I mean. That's another one for Rickman.
I do think we have a lot. I mean, just because of white men ruining everything, the majority of action movies that are out there that are on top lists are just a bunch of like muscled up dudes running around. But there is a film, and you can pick one out of the two. I would probably pick the first one that has a really strong female protagonist, and that's Kill Bill.
Oh yeah.
That is 100% an action movie. And also Terminator 2, Linda Hamilton
Kill Bill
is really the hero of that film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Terminator 2 is like one of my mother-in-law's favorite movies, and I think because of that, because it's like this super strong mother trying to protect her kid, like that's massive, I think, in terms of action movies.
She's also great in the last Terminator movie that came out, which I liked way more than I expected to. I thought was really, really, really good.
I enjoyed it for the 20 minutes before the plane landed that I got to see of it. It was kind of that movie for me. Like, oh yeah, sure, all right.
I was having a conversation recently, and I can't remember who it was with. Do you find, either of you, that you tend to disproportionately cry at movies when you watch them on planes?
We talked about this. Yeah, I do too.
Yes. You were there for, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You cry more. It's amazing.
Yeah. I was traveling with somebody once where, what were we watching? It was something like super sad. And my friend, she's like, oh, yeah, I can't watch this. It's just too sad. Like, she was crying, and then she's like, I just got to watch something fun. So she put on, it was like an episode of Frasier or something. Mm-hmm. And so I go on, I'm watching my movie, and I look over and she's crying, and it's like the finale of Frasier. She didn't realize it. But I actually, for years, when I worked at the newspaper, I had a newspaper column called The Tear Jerk, because I refused to watch kind of emotional movies because I cried too easily. So I decided to just go all in. Like every week I'd review another tear jerk movie. Yeah. And I was behind on my column, and I was flying across the country. So I watched one of them on the plane. It was The Notebook. Oh. Which is, not a good movie. Sure. But absolutely pushes those buttons. And I just lost it. I lost it on this plane. I was sitting next to, I remember it was just like a 2-year-old that I didn't know. And the 2-year-old just kept watching me cry. I was trying to hide it. And he would just put little Cheerios on my armrest because he thought I needed Cheerios, which would just make me cry more. Oh, sure. And I was trying to block it from the stewardess because she was like, I thought they'd have to land the plane. Like if she saw what was happening to my face, like we have to land this plane. There's something with the pressure. I remember reading this. Like there's something about the barometric pressure, whatever, in the plane, the altitude that actually makes it easier for you just to lose it.
I feel like that's a better excuse than me crying while I watch Pitch Perfect on a plane. I'm like, they finally got it right. They came together. They're all doing, and the meta of it is that they all love this project they're doing together. And that's the real victory.
And Hal is just reaching into the little baggie of Cheerios that the 2-year-old next to him has.
Oh, I'm eating.
He's not even waiting
Cheerios
for him to put them on his armrest. The kid, thanks for the Cheerios. This really is an emotional movie.
I'm an emotional eater.
Kid's like, I get it, man. It's Pitch Perfect.
If movie theaters could actually seal off the movie theater and recreate the conditions of an airplane, like crank up the pressure or something, I don't know what it is. Like people would love movies even more, I think.
We're going to put pure oxygen into the theater.
Welcome to the new AMC Lightheaded.
Yeah. Now you're going to like Sahara. Let's take a brief break and we will come back and we will solve this once and for all.
That's right.
We'll throw out a few more action movies and see which one is the best of all time.
That's right. Which is better, The Office or Parks and Recreation?
Nope. We'll be back.
Hi. Are you someone who thinks that when one door closes, another one opens?
Someone who always sees the light at the end of the tunnel.
If you answered yes to one or both of these questions, good for you.
We are not those people.
Nope. I'm Annabelle Gurwitch, and I'm that other door opening, it probably leads to a broom closet kind of person.
And I'm Laura House. When I see a light at the end of a tunnel, I assume it's a train headed right toward me.
Laura and I have created a brand new podcast for people like us. It's called Tiny Victories. We're sharing personal tiny victories or things we've read or seen that inspire resilience.
So if you're looking for a tiny reason to get out of bed each week, subscribe to Tiny Victories.
Available on Maximum Fun or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's get tiny.
Congratulations! You've won a ticket to attend an exclusive opportunity in a relaxing environment with two lovers.
Wow. Well, this sounds like a sort of proposition of sorts, but really it's an ad for our podcast. Wonderful. It's a show we do here on Maximum Fun where we talk about things that we like and things that we're into.
I'm Rachel McElroy, and you just heard Griffin McElroy, and we are excited for you to join us as we talk about movies and music and books.
Things like sneezing or the idea of rain.
Can you get news or information you can use?
Absolutely you cannot, because we're here to talk to you about pumpernickel bread.
You can find new episodes on Wednesdays.
So catch the wave!
Okay, we're back. So far, our finalists are Die Hard. What other movies do I do think Lethal Weapon should be up there. I recently rewatched them, and it's hard as a Jewish man to watch anything with Mel Gibson in it anymore. I somehow compartmentalize him. I have like a BCAD. It works for me. That movie also, similar to Die Hard, set the idea of mismatched partners with one another.
That's true.
And it is a really well-made movie. It's got the jumping off the building sequence. Probably two's maybe got more memorable action because that's where they establish that he can dislocate his shoulder. So he has to use that to escape being chained up underwater. And then he pulls down a house on stilts.
Is it the first one that it's been a while since I watched those. The first one is at the end with the rain and the spotlight on him and the Die Hard guy going at it?
He fights Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
In the front yard.
Yeah, but like all the cops are there watching it happen?
They're all there watching, and Danny Glover's like, hey, back off. We outnumber them. Let's see if he kills my partner, and then we'll decide what to do.
That is terrible police work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of these movies, especially if you're talking about like 80s action movies. It's like, I don't know, rewatching it, like there's a lot there. Like Die Hard 2, like the story is about a man trying to get back his ex-wife who's a successful business person. There's like, foreign controlled company, foreign building that's taken over by foreign people. And, she's with him in the end because he solved all the problems with violence, and he's like,
there's been no growth as a person.
Shot all these people, and there's no growth as people, or especially beyond just like the guy is violent and gets the lady by the end.
That's growth.
I hope watching your coked out friend get shot made you realize that we're perfect for one another.
Yeah.
I just hope.
Oh my God.
So I mean, all of these movies have all sorts of problems, or even just like, is it Reginald Val Johnson's character in Die Hard?
Al.
Yeah.
Is that a Sergeant Al Valentine?
Probably. But his whole story is, he's the cop who once like shot a kid, and he feels real bad about it. And, but by the end, don't worry, he's the guy who's going to shoot the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he did it. He's back. He's shooting people again.
He's a good cop again.
There's all that. There's all that stuff wrapped up in Die Hard. I'm sure there's a lot more, probably even in Lethal Weapon. If I rewatched it, like, it's very hard to like look at the 80s action movies and be like, well, that is the best of all time.
Yeah.
Overlook all this stuff, everyone. It's like, I don't know.
There's some teenage prostitution in there, like a drugged out, because the girl
There's some.
Yeah, the girl is drugged out, but then her dad is in like dirty money for like they're bringing drugs over, and it's
This is in which
very
one?
Convoluted. Lethal Weapon.
See, I was going to say this before about the Lethal Weapon movies, and this goes back, I guess, to I like my action movies simple. I know the relationship of Lethal Weapon is the thing that stands out in that movie for me as the most important thing to hold on to and carry away from it. The action of that movie, I can't really tell you what happened.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's cops and robbers, but it's the relationship is the key thing of that movie. Whereas some of these movies are, like you mentioned before, like a video game. Do we want, how important is it to care about the character at the end?
Yeah.
Definitely important. But I mean, if you've watched any of Jackie Chan's movies, it's less about the character and more about these incredible fight sequences.
Yeah.
Where he almost always plays a guy who doesn't want to fight. So his choreography is about getting out of the way and disabling the threat so he can get as far as possible, which is why he climbs and jumps on stuff and is throwing things. Like both his Hong Kong action films and the stuff he's done in America, starting with Rumble in the Bronx, which was basically shot overseas to appear as if it was in New York. And then the Rush Hour movies, Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights, like the action sequences are really good, but it's not as much about the characters. Maybe Rush Hour a little bit more is about their relationship with one another. And that's kind of what you're expecting to carry it through those other movies. Yeah. But his action sequences that's what you come for. If you go to see a Jackie Chan film, you're coming to see what is he going to do this time.
Right.
Sure.
So you're fired.
I don't know.
What I'm trying to say.
Wait, am I being replaced with Jackie Chan?
Yes.
He keeps trying to leave my apartment. I've got like 10 guys that are keeping him in this back room away from you, and he running away to create a podcast together. I don't know if he's still in there. I'm going to assume that those 10 guys that I put on there to cover Jackie Chan are still fine and keeping an eye on him. I'm not even going to go in there.
They're all tied up in microphone cords right now.
Can I do a quick aside to go along with our conversation? Who knows? Might inform it, might not, but
we agree. The Office is best.
Yeah.
Dang it. I was just going all in on Parks and Rec. All right, but this is a binary for you. Are you more a fan of the Down series or the Has Fallen series? You've got White House Down, that's the Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx version of the exact same movie, pretty much. Olympus Has Fallen with Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart. I ask in this moment because it does seem like one of them leans way more heavily on the characters and their relationship and how they used to, and one's been, and it's,
you're talking about Olympus Has Fallen.
Olympus Has Fallen is the more lethal weapon of them.
Yeah.
And White House Down is the more diehard of them.
Well, I mean, I am out because I haven't seen any of them.
They are both an absolute ridiculous blast.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Again, it's that thing that I love about a good action movie, which is White House attacked, John McClane gets president to safety.
Yeah.
Is basically what both of these movies are.
Yeah, I mean, Chip, it ultimately comes down to, do you want your president to be the person who is kidnapped and like there is a relationship there, or do you want your president to be the one taking part in the action? Because if you do, I've got a great movie for you, but which do you prefer?
Like you're talking like Air Force One style.
There you go. That is one that we have not talked about at all yet.
Let me ask you this though. Air Force One, when it came out, was described as blank on a plane.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes on a plane? I was going to mention it before, but it feels like Die Hard on a plane, right?
Sure. I mean, anything in an enclosed space is going to be called Die Hard on a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Under Siege is Die Hard on a submarine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember loving Air Force One.
Yeah.
Great bad guy.
Is an iconic line important? Get off my plane.
So.
Yeah.
Get off my plane. Oh. Technically, Mr. President, it's our plane. It's the people's plane. You are a steward of this job. But we'll let that slide. He's taking your whole family. Also, you were great in Raiders. Oh, no.
Also, get off our plane doesn't really have the same.
Yeah.
Hey, if you
get off the people's plane, comrade.
I don't want to reading rainbow this too much with recommendations, but if you haven't seen Executive Decision, that is even better than Air Force One. It's
what is that one?
Executive Decision.
Die Hard in a Plane
is about a plane that's taken over by terrorists, the leader of which is played by the Royal Shakespeare Company's David Suchet.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Russell is a counterterrorism expert, but he's just like a desk guy. He knows the terrorists better than anybody. So he knows sort of like he's got him profiled and has a good idea of like what they're going to do next. Steven Seagal is the head of an elite strike force, and they figure out we can fly like a Black Hawk or Black Wing, those planes that avoid radar detection. We can go underneath
a plot device plane.
Yeah. They put a tube up against it that creates a seal, and they go up into the belly of the plane. Oliver Platt is there as well because he's the technical guy. He devised the system. So they go up and then the tube starts to rip apart. So Steven Seagal goes, "You guys will make it." And he closes the hatch and dies. In the first 20 minutes of the movie, he's gone. And then they have to figure out, then they have to figure out in the plane. So you have Oliver Platt, who's not an action guy. You have Kurt Russell, who's really just like a desk jockey. But you also have B.D. Wong is one of the, I think they're SEALs. B.D. Wong, John Leguizamo.
Wow.
It's a fantastic cast. Halle Berry is the flight attendant on the plane who they communicate with and is sort of like helping them by like changing the manifests so that they don't know who, like there are important U.S. political people on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
What year did this come out?
1990.
Late 90s?
90.
Really?
Ooh. 90. It's either 93 or 97. Like it's very close to 95 one way or the other.
I remember that being a big deal that same way that I guess that was the thing to do then. Executive Decision did it where they put a big star in all the trailers and then don't tell you that they kill him in the first 20 minutes. Because Seagal's on the poster.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the two of them on the poster.
It's so good.
Drew Barrymore in Scream, they did it too. And they did it to the whole ops team in Mission Impossible. They set that movie up with, all right, team, here we're going to introduce every character. And by the end of that scene, all of those characters are dead and Ethan Hunt's on his own.
Yeah. Luke's right hand is on the Empire Strikes Back poster.
Yeah, or like the Batman, Batman Begins is Thomas and Martha Wayne on all the posters. I'm just like, I can't wait to see this.
They're like, we have so many plans for our 60s.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about any Kurt Russell movies, and there are two all-time action films that he's in. One is Big Trouble in Little China. The other is Escape from New York.
Mm-hmm.
I recently tried to watch Big Trouble in Little China because I missed it as a kid.
Yeah.
No.
Big Trouble in Little China, all of the suspension of disbelief for that movie, it asks way too much, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you have a fondness for the memory of that movie, I suspect, it doesn't hold up.
If it catches you at the right time, it definitely,
you
grow to love it. But I mean,
that time is 3 a.m.
Yeah, you had the same reaction as most of the people did when it was in the theater, which is not caring for it. It was a bomb.
I am a man of the people.
You are.
Yeah.
Jim Zdarsky, man of the people.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Escape from New York?
I like it. It's also one of those ones where I came to it a bit later.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get why people enjoy it, but it didn't jump to the top of any list in my head.
I feel like I remember more of Escape from LA, especially the ridiculous sequence where he has to play basketball to save his life.
Okay, now we got to talk about the movies where you have to play basketball to save your life.
Yeah.
The fish that saved Pittsburgh.
There's that one with Meryl Streep.
Yep.
There's that scene in A River Runs Through
The
It.
Dribble Wild. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Dribble Wild, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about Speed.
Yes.
Like, Speed is
great.
It's pretty great.
And it's such a simple premise.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the bus go below 55.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it also has like the memorable line, like was it Pop Quiz Hot Shot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which they use like 12 times in the trailer, I think. Like I think they knew there's like, let's make this the line and everyone's gonna say it forever.
Well, they say it 32 times in the movie.
Yeah.
So they just give you a sampling of what you're going to get.
Just a taste.
It is really good. And it's interesting because I don't remember. The only centerpiece scene I remember is when the bus has to make a jump on the freeway.
There's the big jump. It ends in the sub with the bus driving down the subway rails.
Does it? Is that the ending of that movie?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They get it. They somehow get it to keep going. They get it, down into the subway somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Did they get the bus in? Oh, no. It's the denouement, like, cause it has like a whole action sequence after the bus is stopped.
Yeah.
That's right. Then they go down into the subway and they're like, well, we're doing all of public transit, I guess.
Yeah. Cause Dennis Hopper, like, I think his head just gets like knocked off.
Lopped off on the.
Yeah. He was a pretty good villain too.
Oh, he's great. Though, if you want a really fun deep dive, Google Mark McConville on Twitter talking about why Dennis Hopper is watching a football game as he is sitting there watching all of these different monitors. It's one of those deep, there's no way this could happen dives in a movie. And I can no longer think of the movie Speed without thinking about this deep dive that he took. But what is on the TV in the background of what Dennis Hopper is doing in his lair aside, it does have, it has his partner gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
It has a bad guy with a lair. It has a couple of interesting small characters that you kind of root for 30 seconds and then get killed on the bus. It's got the strong love interest between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock.
Introduced the world to Sandra Bullock too.
Did it?
I think that was her first big role. So
in a great way with her opening to that is a blast. Yeah. It's also a pretty great, it checks off all the boxes again.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have a list of movies that check off the boxes, and then we're just going to have to go with gut on that. I think so far we have the only ones that really check them off completely for me are Speed and Die Hard. Do we have any others that I'm failing to mention?
Not Lethal Weapon, because it doesn't have the centerpiece. The lack of a centerpiece for you is.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. What do you think? I can go either way on Lethal Weapon, which doesn't bode well for the ending, but.
Yeah, if I had seen it more recently, I'd be able to make a more informed decision. My memory of it is that it's great. And even just thinking of that last fight in the rain is lifting my heart.
Sure.
So yeah, I put Lethal Weapon up there. I put Die Hard up there, Lethal Weapon up there. I would probably put John Wick up there just because much like Die Hard, it's now kind of created a whole genre as well.
Oh.
Fury Road, I kind of discount it because it's just nonstop, but it's so well done. Like,
it's
obviously,
absolutely beautiful.
It's fantastic.
Like, part of me wants to discount any action movie that has received Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm. That is not in the spirit of
it's not in the spirit of action movie.
Yeah,
but also
too good.
Also, I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't want to discount the thing for being too good.
Sure. So, The English Patient.
Yeah.
Chocolat.
Chocolat.
I think we should put Fury Road on there. I think it's just there's so many incredible sequences in it. And it's like the action's nonstop. Plus it actually has a female lead.
Yeah.
It's not about like the men are in constant you could take Mad Max out of that movie.
I don't really consider Tom Hardy female, but sure, go on.
I don't think he's the main character. I think it's Charlize.
Charlize is the main character.
Yeah, that's right.
That's my gasp, my shock.
Did you just clutch your pearls?
Yeah. Tom Hardy's, I guess they had to make it a Mad Max movie, technically, to get the funding to do it. But clearly they didn't want it to be a Mad Max movie. It was a Furiosa movie.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It's great.
I would also put Kill Bill Volume 1 in there.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many incredible sequences in it. And it's
nothing but tent poles and homages to action movies of all different genre.
Yeah.
It's like it's the Epcot World Showcase of action movies, in that we get a sword fight. We get two badasses, kicking at each other in a kitchen. Yeah. We get gunfights. We get just straight up brutal hand to hand.
What about Roadhouse? You want to put that up there? He tears somebody's throat out.
We'll save that one for best Ben Gazzara movie.
All right, fine.
There you go.
Like, that's going to win.
It's just going to be that in Buffalo 66.
Are there any Michael Bay movies like The Rock?
The Rock is really perfect.
The Rock is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's his own genre of movie for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like Nick Cage.
We needed some Nick Cage in this.
Yeah. And like, this is Nick Cage. We're at that tipping point where he's won his Oscar and about to win his Oscar, I think. And like slowly he's starting the ascent or descent, depending on ascent.
Sure, yeah.
Into the higher being he has become.
Yeah. He was in the stratosphere. Now he has risen to outer space.
Yeah, we call it the Cage scent.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's either ascent or descent.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the Cage scent. He's looking
Folks,
up
we're beginning our Cage scent into Hollywood.
Yeah. Also, like, great set pieces. The setting is iconic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have the reluctant hero and the wrongly accused hero, which is another kind of trope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That Sean Connery is fighting for his freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, that and Con Air.
Are we going, though, for Con Air? Oh, Con Air is
good. To me,
what a cast.
That
Con Air
cast
is incredible. I think I like The Rock better.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we've begun the Cage scent by time that he's like, well, hey there, I got a mullet. Like, that's.
Yeah. In this one, we just got a taste of it.
In that movie more than anything.
The Steve Buscemi stuff is creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had that brief moment of the Cage scent with Carla was the prom queen.
Yes.
And then we got the rest of the movie from there. That's
right.
Yeah.
That's his turning point moment when he decides to be a hero.
Man.
Well,
look, but here's the question, and we often ask this on this show is, what is the superlative we're looking for here? Are we looking for the best action movie, or are we looking for the most action movie? Because some of these are more action movie than others.
And are they one of the same?
Some of them are better movies, I think.
Do you think it's one and the same? Is that possible?
I think with the one that's popping into my mind as kind of unbeatable, yes.
Is it the River Wild?
Which is?
It's the River Wild.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's the Dribble Wild.
It's the Dribble Wild, the
basketball version. Yeah.
Is it Ricochet? Another John? All of the movies where John Lithgow's the bad guy. So you have that and Cliffhanger.
And Raising Cain.
That's more of a horror movie than an action
that's
movie.
fair. And Santa Claus the movie, where he plays BZ. For free!
So what's the one you're thinking of?
Die Hard.
Die Hard, yeah. Yeah, it's a great movie.
I think it is the best movie and the most action movie out of all of these.
Yeah, yeah. And I still get a visceral reaction when I watch it. Like, it's one of the ones that's like kind of the family movie at Christmas that we all kind of watch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably the one I've seen the most out of all the action movies.
Let's all gather around the television and watch Takagi get shot in the head.
Oh, we hate each other in my family.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You watch it.
Yeah.
Don't you blink. You blink. You all put on your Clockwork Orange eye openers and watch Die Hard together.
It's just we all watch it halfway through. My dad turns to my mom with an angry look in his eye and goes, "This is what will happen when you leave me." Every year at Christmas.
And they're still together. Who needs therapy?
When you have threads.
Yeah. You're my Bonnie Bedelia.
That'll be the gift this year, is a sweater with "You're my Bonnie Bedelia."
Yeah. Yeah. So even though it's, as the kids say, it's problematic, I think on a lot of levels.
Sure.
Die Hard, I think, is probably it for me. I remember my wife said, like, she took it was like an intro to film course or whatever, and they studied Die Hard. It's just like so representative of that period in American culture of the Reagan years. Like there's so many weird, subtle things in that movie. that just sum up that time perfectly. So it's a bit of a time capsule of a movie at this point. Because
Sure.
88, 87 it came out.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's just a template for so much that came after it that it's hard to discount it.
Before we issue the final ruling, does anybody have any recommendations for action movies that did not win, that maybe haven't been mentioned, that you want to throw out there that's like a good movie to watch?
Oh, I have one.
You got one?
Yes. It would never make the list. It is not by any stretch a great movie, but boy, is it a blast. And that is San Andreas, which is The Rock and his pet helicopter going around LA, gathering people to get them out of the earthquake. It is a treat.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Chip, you got one?
Well, you know what? I was just trying to look up the title of it because I remember seeing this one movie in the theaters where I was just like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. And then nobody liked it, which was The Rundown, which was The Rock and Sean William Scott.
So good.
Yeah.
I never saw The Rundown.
So good.
Yeah, Christopher Walken's the bad guy in it too.
Yeah,
I remember it being all over the buses in LA.
Porcini mushrooms.
Was his name?
No. Yeah, hi, I'm Porcini mushrooms.
Yeah.
I think
It's
also
a Dick Tracy villain.
it was the first time I'd actually seen The Rock in a thing as well, in which you were instantly like, oh, this guy's going to be big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I think he was already obviously big as a wrestler, but he commanded the screen, even at that stage.
Yeah, his first starring role was The Scorpion King, which was not great, but made money. Then this was his follow-up to that. And it has a great christening moment for action movies where he's in a club at the very beginning and he passes Arnold Schwarzenegger, who turns to him and says, have fun. Like that is his, that's him being
so
blessed
good.
by Schwarzenegger.
Wow.
So good.
And Mark, you haven't seen this. He is a mob enforcer, like just a muscle guy who wants to open his own restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And Christopher Walken, who's the guy who employs him and who he owes some sort of debt, has him go to South America to retrieve his son, who's played by Sean William Scott. And it felt like the start of a franchise, but then they never made any more.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
And I only wish they had.
Yeah. There were like maybe 10 of us in the theater watching it. And I remember just cheering. Like it was just so much fun.
Oh, it's
and
so
nobody
good.
would believe me. And
I haven't seen that movie.
This guy, The Rock, is going places.
Yeah. Here's my recommendation. It is a Ridley Scott movie from 2004 called Man on Fire, which is a remake of an Italian film. This version stars
Signore en Fuego.
Yeah, Denzel Washington I think he's like a former hitman or something. Like he's a bodyguard who's hired to take care of Dakota Fanning. And then she gets abducted and then he goes after her. It's really well done. I love, it's not Ridley Scott, it's Tony Scott.
Is this adult Dakota Fanning or is this little kid Dakota? Is this like, first kid?
This is little kid Dakota Fanning. It is Tony Scott, who is my favorite of the Scott brothers. I love Tony Scott movies, and that is a fantastic one. So check out those movies. There are a lot of great recommendations here for you if you want to get into action. But people of the world, if you want to start with the very best and forget the very rest, you need to watch Die Hard. I find it hard to believe there's anybody listening to this who hasn't seen it, but if not, boy, are you in for a fun ride. So hang out. It's a very Zdarsky Christmas when you're watching Die Hard.
You know what? And if you already have seen Die Hard, why not check out all of its amazing sequels?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They just get better and better as they go on. So
start with
like seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But there it is. That is the best action movie of all time. It is Die Hard. It created the mold, created the prototype for many of the action films you enjoy to this day.
Yeah.
Asked and answered.
This was an absolute blast. And Chip, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was fun.
Let everybody know if you want them to sign up for your newsletter, which is a very good place to start, or follow you on social media. Get all the plugs, please.
No, I don't care.
Fair enough.
Who cares? Who cares? Come on.
Who cares?
I don't need it. No one needs it. No one needs it. If they want to find me, they'll find me. Whatever.
You know where to look.
Yeah. There's a burlap bag that if you open it up, under the leaves, there's a bin. And inside that bin, you have to find the key to open it. That key is somewhere hidden in this building.
You know, to be perfectly honest, like on a podcast, does anyone ever do this? Like if someone says, "Oh yeah, check me out on Twitter, I'm at blah blah blah,"
possible,
and then someone goes, "Oh, I better pause this podcast and write this down," and like, no, if you tag me when you post it, that's enough.
Sure.
All I expect from people is to click a button. I don't expect them to write something out. Who writes things out?
Well, thanks for clicking the buttons that got you here today.
Yeah.
This topic is closed, but there are many more to discuss. So please reach out to us on Twitter at WeGotThisTweets, or
you can email us at WeGotThisPodcast@gmail.com, or go to our Facebook group. Share your action movie favorites. That's Facebook.com/groups/WeGotThisPodcast. Thank you to producer Ken Plume, researcher Kate McManus, graphic designer Uri Kelman, and QA engineer Jen Alba.
And thanks, of course, to our musicians, Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman, for our score and theme song, respectively. And thanks to you, the people of the world, for giving us a chance to sit here today and talk about something awesome like action movie. Wait, hold on a second. There's someone at the door. Guys, I have to go right now. Hal, come with me. Thank you. For Hal Loveland, I'm Mark Agliardi.
Mark Agliardi, I'm Hal Loveland. And don't worry, everybody.
We got this.
We got this.
Let's go.
All right, let's start again. Another hour.
Yeah,
done.
Let's go.
Boom.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Audience supported.